Welcome everybody. This is my 2009 Ducati 848 fuel hose repair video. Yep, that doesn't sound too good, does it? I'm going to show you how to get your Ducati 848 running just like this one again. This is after my repair. As you can see, I was successful. And I've learned that this is not an uncommon problem with this model. I've had quite a bit of feedback from the forums, and several members out there have either experienced this personally or they know of members who have experienced the same problem. As a matter of fact, just 2 days ago I replied to a posting that turned out to be the same exact problem that I had. And I discovered during the troubleshooting process through some advice from other members that the way to diagnose this, if your Ducati is not starting and it appears to not be getting fuel, open the fuel cap, see if there's swirling inside like this, and if there is, that's an indication that you may have a disconnected fuel hose. Siphon out as much fuel as you can, and if you get spraying like this, you probably do have a disconnected fuel hose. We initially suspected that clamp number 6 here above the fuel filter could have been disconnected, but we learned later that that particular clamp was not the problem. So I decided to publish this how-to video to show other new Ducati shade tree mechanics like myself how to get through this step by step. And if you follow the manual, you'll see that you need to remove the seat and the side panels. That's what I'm doing here. This is relatively easy work. You only need 2 or 3 different size Allen wrenches to do this. This is a number 3 that I'm using now. I'll use a number 4 on the forward bolts to the side panels, and then I think it's a number 6 or a number 8 for that bolt there holding the tank onto the frame. If you haven't really removed your fairings yet or fooled around with your body work, it can be intimidating at first, but after you do this a couple of times and you get a good understanding of where all of the bolts are, it gets easier every time, and eventually it just becomes part of the routine. As a matter of fact, you'll probably even discover some shortcuts that you can take along the way. That's what I've done, and I'm no certified mechanic, but it's pretty easy to figure these things out. So we're going to take this side panel off now, and you can see that it's already loose. I've got all the bolts out. You just need to maneuver it around a little bit because the tail section is overlapped on top of one of the tabs there, in a couple places actually. So you pull that out. The next step is we need to remove this big bolt. Again, I believe it's 6 or 8 millimeters. Remember that below that bolt you have a washer right here and a rubber grommet. Below that there is a spacer and another grommet, so make sure you do not lose those. Lift the tank up, push the hose out of the bracket on each side like that, and then we need to disconnect the fuel level sensor from the main wiring loom. And then you can see here that I'm tucking an old towel under here for a reason. This is going to get a little bit messy. We're going to end up losing a few ounces of fuel that's left in the fuel hoses. You can see it here. It can be a little bit messy, so be prepared for that. And then to get the tank out of there, we just lift up and pull back a little bit, and it's off. Just going to make sure there's no fuel left here because I don't want fuel dripping all over the engine. And now we can get to the heart of the matter here. We need to get this flange out of the fuel tank. And one note about these factory bolts here, I think they're really poor quality. I've worked on 3 848 fuel tanks before, and 2 of the 3 have either had stripped out heads, or I stripped them out. So I'm going to replace these in the end with a aftermarket bolts that I picked up at the local Sears Hardware. So let's go ahead and get these out, and let's take a look at our existing problem here, which is a suspected disconnected fuel hose inside the tank. And yep, we can see it there. As I pull this out, you can see, if you're familiar with this, that the fuel filter is disconnected from the fuel pump. Number 13 here, the lower 13 clamp, appears to be the culprit. Let's take a look at the O-ring here. Just first glimpse, it looks good. Not bad at all. Let's cover this up so nothing flies in there. I still have some fuel there. And as we take a closer look at this, you can see the clamps. Those are Oettinger ear clamps, and I did a little research on these, and I'm sure they're good clamps. They have a purpose. They're just not working that great on these Ducati fuel flange assemblies. You need a special tool, as you can see in that last picture there, to get them on and off. But I'm going to replace them, per the advice of some forum members, with fuel injection hose clamps. I ended up going to Summit Racing Online, and they have a wide variety there. Here you can see Vibrant Performance's line of clamps, the 7 to 9 millimeter, and here on this side we have the 8 to 10 millimeter clamps. And then the next pair is 9 to 11. That's the size you need for the smaller hose. And then below that is the 13 to 15 millimeter. Those are the correct size for the hose that I have in my hand right now. And since I just pulled that off of the filter and the pump, I'm going to go ahead and just pull those off here. But you actually need the tool, the special tool that I showed you earlier, or some good metal snips to get these off. And you just go into the ear, cut that ear apart, open, and this slips right off. It's very easy to get off. Back to the main repair. Let's inspect the hose. I want to make sure that that did not cause the problem, and it's a good snug fit on the filter. And let's see how it fits on the pump, and it looks good, nice and tight. And dry fitted up, this looks good. So I think we're ready to go ahead and get these clamps on. And as you can see here, I already dry fitted the clamps as well. And these clamps apparently will apply more even pressure all the way around the hose, which will hopefully keep them on a little bit longer than the factory clamps. The hose that I have in my hand now, the lower section at least, is a little difficult to get on. You'll need to maneuver and play around with that some, and you'll see here that I'm going in through the backside because the screw that goes through the clamp takes up a lot more room than the Oettinger clamp, and I'm sure that's why they use them at the factory. Probably a combination of that and speed. But note to the Ducati factory in Bologna, these clamps aren't working that well. You guys should probably look at a better setup. But I'm looking at this now and it looks good. I feel confident and would put this back into the tank in a heartbeat. But we have one more item to take care of, and that is the O-ring that I'm removing here. We're going to get this off, inspect it, clean it, and lube it up, and we'll throw it back on. We also need to take a look at that channel down at the bottom of the flange to make sure that it's clean as well. We'll take care of that. And I'm going to use some Lucas Oil multi-purpose grease here. I think this is red and tacky number 2, I believe it is. Just a very light coating around the entire O-ring. Some people use Vaseline, I believe, so you don't have to use that particular grease, but either way, the lubrication will help seat the O-ring into the flange, as I'm doing here now. And I think this is a very important step. So take your time, make sure that it's seated properly here, and probably more importantly, the lubrication will also help seat it into the bottom of the tank once you tighten it down. So double check, make sure everything is seated properly on that end, and then to get this back in, just twist it and turn it. Tuck the screen into the tank as you move it in, and that's done. And you can see here I've got all of the bolts in except the last one. It does call for thread locker, Loctite number 243 in the manual. I'm using Permatex here, I believe it is. But you'll notice that I replaced all of the bolts, and I mentioned that earlier. These are much better. They're stainless steel. Also note that I'm crisscrossing the pattern here as I tighten these up. Quarter to a half a turn each time. And then I'm a horrible calculator at torque, so I use a torque wrench, and this requires 6 Newton meters only. So be very slow, very light with the torque wrench. And you can see here, at least on my torque wrench, the clicking noise is very faint at this low setting. But I'm just going to crisscross here as well to apply even pressure around the perimeter of the flange as we tighten it down. And then let's take a closer look at these bolts. I'm proud of these. These will not strip out the next time. You can see here the head is much deeper. That's a number 4 millimeter versus 3 millimeter. They're the same size bolt. I'm sure you can get them at your local hardware store. To get the tank back on, we need to get these catches lined up with the frame, and you'll see where they go. Just push down and in. Make sure everything's seated properly there. And now we can go ahead and reconnect all of the hoses, including the vents or the breather hoses, and the fuel level sensor. And I'll zip tie that wire there in a few minutes. Make sure you get the spacer and the grommet down below in place, and the grommet and the washer and bolt up on top. This gets torqued to 22 Newton meters. And you know what? We're done with this repair. Now we just need to test to ensure that we did everything properly. I'm going to go ahead and put in, I don't know, maybe a half to 3/4 gallon of gas. And I have no spraying. That's good. Let's see if it cranks up. Oh yeah, that's what I like to hear. It took a few extra cranks, but that's expected since the fuel hoses were empty. Doesn't she sound good? I just love the sound of those competition work slip-ons. And I'm going to go ahead and move this outside of the garage so my house does not get filled with motorcycle fumes. I wouldn't mind it, but my wife and Chihuahuas probably would. Okay, let's see. No swirling. Let's crank it up. Cranks up a lot faster now, and that's just vibration that you see there in the fuel, which I did fill up. It's completely full now. And the last step here, really, before I put the seat and the side panels back on, is to ensure that we have no leaks. And I'm going to take my time on this. I'm going to check thoroughly up under the flange area to ensure that we have no leaks there. And I don't see any on this side, so I think the O-ring is sealed up nicely there. Let's move to the other side and see what we have over here. The breather hoses appear to be connected properly. I don't see any signs of fuel here. Nada. So far, so good. So let's see if maybe if we build up some RPMs, if we can get a leak to spring up here. I don't see anything. So this is good. Just feel around. Look around. Let's get some RPMs going. So I'm just going to let this run for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. 12 minutes. We're back. 212 degrees Fahrenheit. No signs of leaks at all on that side. And I don't see anything here. Looks good. No fuel. No leaks. So it's riding time again. Thanks for watching.